Hey everyone, TGIF. My name is Heather Gray, and I am a personal coach offering mindset and success coaching to online business entrepreneurs. And it's been a while since I've been live on my page, so I thought I'd check in with all of you and offer a quick mindset minute because I got a question twice this week from people in my community. So whenever I get something asked twice, it just seems like it's a chance to jump in and meet a community need in an easy, quick way. So here's your mindset minute. Um, the question that I was asked is what happens and how do you prevent your entrepreneurial dreams from taking over your life or hurting your relationships? Because the reality is that when we get super excited about something, sometimes it has this tendency for us to become a little obsessive, a little over focused on it, a little too driven about it. And in the moment, while our intentions are good, people sometimes get hurt on the wayside. And I had some thoughts about that, and I certainly wanted to dive in and share them because I think one of the things that people sort of forget, and I know that people in my community follow me because they're pursuing entrepreneurial dreams, but I also know people are also following me because they have personal dreams of their own in their personal life for things they want to accomplish that have nothing to do with building a business. But I think both things could be helpful and something to think about. And where I usually go with this is recognizing that when we are connected to other people, when we are family members and friends and partners and we're starting out on something new, it's best to kind of communicate to people ahead of time what it is we're doing, why we're doing it, and how it's important to us. Because if people who care about us in our inner circle, you don't have to do some live broadcast and tell everybody, but the people who are going to matter, the people who are going to notice that you haven't been around as much, you can tell them. And when you tell them, it's really important that you communicate two things: what you're doing, why it's important to you, and then also to what they can expect in terms of a change in the relationship and how they're going to continue to know that you're important to them. I think a lot of times, particularly on the entrepreneurial side, people get really entitled about their dreams. They think that they have this shot, they have this vision of what they want to do and how they want to serve and how they want to help people, and they kind of go all in, and they think that they get to, and they forget to include their partners in it. And I see this a lot too with people who start physical, like mental exercise challenges, like marathons or long bike rides or something like that, where there's a lot of training involved. People think that because they're doing something good for themselves, that they don't need to check in with anyone else about it. They don't need to sort of explain themselves or defend their training. And what ends up happening more often than not is there's a conflict in a relationship or a sense of guilt and responsibility for not showing up when a conversation could have just solved the problem. And part of it is just recognizing that even if you really want this, you get to have it. Sometimes people are going to be disappointed. So you have to tell them, I'm working on this thing. It's going to take a ton of my time at the beginning. It might even take some money at the beginning, but I really believe in it, and this is why I want it. I really would like your support. I'd have a hard time imagining myself doing it without your support, but I really want to get on the same page about how it works for you. When you include a partner, when you include the people who are really close to you in the decision to move forward with something, you're giving them an opportunity to talk about how it's going to affect them. So, for example, if somebody's doing, like, and I'm in New England and there's this big Pan Mass challenge that it's like a 60-mile bike ride. So people are training for months and months and months. If you happen to be training for one of these things, and you don't include your spouse at the beginning and say, hey, I'm going to be getting up early morning on a Saturday. I have a long ride. I'm probably going to be gone for 4 hours. And you think you just get to do that. Well, you're going to come home to holy hell because your spouse is going to be sort of bitter and resentful that it was just assumed that you would take care of the house or pick up the kids or get them to the soccer game, rather than saying, I'm doing this thing. It's super important to me. I care about it. I know it's going to take time from our family, but I want this to work, and what do I need to do to make it work for us? And then also in that conversation with the people who are important, when you are going to be available and when they can expect you back. When you include people as part of your process, You're validating to them that they're important, that their point of view matters, and that you care about them. When you go off like a Lone Ranger and just do your thing because you think you're entitled to do your thing, you can't be surprised when you lose your relationships along the way. But the other thing that sometimes happens, and I know that this has happened to me, is that when I was starting my new business, even though there's word business in the title, it didn't feel like work anymore. I was super excited. I wanted to help people a lot. I had to write blogs. I wanted to learn some of the tech. I wanted to start building a community and getting people to follow me. And there didn't seem, especially when I was doing it while I was working my full-time job, there didn't seem to be enough hours in the day to do all the things. And I don't know if that, feels familiar to any of you. I'm pretty sure it does. And so it just ended up taking over where I thought I would be done work, but then I had this quick idea and I had to run to my phone and jot it down real quick. Or I had started this really cool conversation in a Facebook group, but it was dinner time, but I was wondering what happened to the conversation. So as soon as dinner's over, I'm going back to the phone. And what ends up happening with that, even though it's positive energy for my new thing, it's sending a message to my husband that he's less important, that he comes in second, that he's not the new shiny object in my life, and that there's things that I care about more. Some of that I actually think our partners and the people close to us kind of need to suck it up a little bit, because everybody's been there when something new, a new hobby, a new interest shows up in our lives. We do tend to kind of get a little excited and obsessive. I know that I get the same way about building my new business as I do when I'm vacation planning. Suddenly it's like, oh, I have this idea. Let me check and look this up. And it can seem like we're distracted, and it can seem like we're disconnected from our partners. The most important thing is to acknowledge it for yourself and to say it out loud and to include your partner in it. Because more often than not, like as long as you say, hey, I just need to do this for 20 minutes and then I'll be back and I'll put the phone away, or I'll put my article that I'm working on away, it's usually fine. What relationships start to crack and fracture around isn't actually the new thing. It isn't the dream or the time the business is taking away from the relationship. It's the entitled way that the person takes the time. When you include your people in your time and include them as part of it, it decreases the amount of conflict. But the other piece to this too is any new dream, from marathon racing to building a business, we have to think of it as a marathon and not a race. And I think we have to self-regulate a little bit and monitor ourselves. How much time are we putting into something? If we put in 3 12-hour days in a row in 1 week, are we going to have the energy, the time, the sustenance to continue on? Because building new dreams is like a foundation process. You have to build it brick by brick by brick. And if you're not setting yourself up for success, you're going to run out of gas. You're going to burn out. The thing that's currently lighting you up is going to not light you up anymore, and you're going to feel disconnected, disenchanted, discouraged, and any other dis that you want to include in that list. So it's a little bit about recognizing for yourself that you have to self-regulate, even if the people around you don't particularly care or aren't kind of like bucking up against the system. You want to make sure that you are building a life that's whole and that's reflective of your values. And some people really do want to be workaholics and build their businesses, or be super fit and do every triathlon training, or volunteer as many times a year as possible, or get unilaterally focused on one thing, and they're fine and it works for them and they're happy and they get lucky and they find people who know them, understand them, and buy into that. But oftentimes it just simply involves a conversation, or we have a moment of knowing when it doesn't work for us anymore. When I was in my young 20s, oh my God, I had a job I was totally obsessed with. I worked every Friday night, I worked every Saturday night, and if anybody I was dating didn't like it, I didn't need to date them anymore because I just cared about my job that much. And as you get older, you realize that there's more to life than your job, but you get to live a life according to your values. And when you find that you're making choices that are inconsistent with your values, hold yourself accountable and own it and make a shift and figure out what you need to do when. Sometimes our dreams are just going to have time intensive periods. There are certainly times in marathon training on those long run times where you're just out there for hours and hours a day. People who are building a business and they're about to launch a product or a service or trying something new, it's going to be heavy intensive for a while. But when that intensity backs off, you owe it to yourself to slow down and catch up with the rest of the parts of your life. So I hope the person who asked this question, I hope both of them, there are two people this week, got their need met. And if you have any questions, certainly pop them in the comments. And here's the deal. This is how to work with me and get Ask Heather advice anytime you want. If you would like to, you can tag me publicly either here on my business page, or you can join Choose to Have It All. It's a private community group for people working on mindset and building their big lives. And if you tag me publicly in the group, I'm going to answer your question there. If you're a little too shy for that, but you want your 2 cents answered, you want my 2 cents, send it in to me as a message, and I'll use it like this I just did with the Facebook Live or an upcoming blog post, or send me a message on how you'd like to work with me one-on-one. But if you'd like to continue the discussion, I invite you all to follow me over to facebook.com/groups/choose to have it all, and let's continue the conversation over there. Thanks so much. Have a great weekend, everybody. Bye-bye.